Alright guys, welcome to part 25 of Project E55 ASL, and it's finally time to start work on the car again after, 2 months of doing nothing at all on the car. And I'm going to be starting off by where I left off last year on the project, which was finishing up on all the carbon fiber bodywork. So there's a couple of carbon fiber bits that I need to make for the front. There's a cover that needs to cover up the radiators, and then there's another panel that is going to be covering up the engine and most of this stuff at the front. The purpose of this bodywork is obviously going to be to clean up the airflow over the car, and while I'm at it, I'm also going to be fixing up the splitter that got damaged on Willow Springs. One of the bolting points of the splitter broke off and the splitter was scraping the ground, so there is quite a bit of damage on the splitter that I need to fix. And also, while I'm at it, I'm also going to be making proper ducts for the radiator and everything, because for now we just made these temporary wooden ducts just because we were running short on time and we didn't have too much time to make the proper thing. That's why we made these wooden ducts around the radiator to guide cool air to the radiator, which worked anyways because there was no cooling issues on the track. But now it's time to do the proper thing, so I'm going to be making the proper carbon fiber ducts this time. Now the thing is that it is still winter in Canada, so it's actually pretty cold over here. It's 0 degrees right now, which means that it is pretty cold to work on carbon fiber. It doesn't really cure on anything less than 15 degrees. So for making these panels, I'm going to try to make them in my basement, which is probably not the best idea because carbon fiber work is pretty messy, but that's the only option for now. So I'm going to try to do my best, whatever I can do with these panels, and yeah, let's see how it goes. So for making this front part of the bodywork, I had to go back to the software, and basically what I did was that I took this part and I decomposed it into individual flat sections, and I laid them flat so that I could print it on a piece of paper, or well, not one piece of paper. I had to print it on multiple pieces of paper because the part was pretty big. But basically, yeah, after printing it to scale on these pieces of paper, I just taped everything together. And after that, I traced the same shape onto this foam. This is the foam that is going to form the core material for the carbon fiber. Once all the pieces of foam were cut to their final shapes, all I had to do was hot glue these parts together, which gave me the shape of the core of the part that I had to make. And after that, I was also using this core as a mold, so after that all I had to do was put carbon fiber on both sides of this part. I started off by applying carbon fiber on the inside. And after that, all I had to do was mix up a whole bunch of resin and apply it over the carbon fiber. After giving 24 hours for the carbon fiber to cure, it was time to flip the part over and start work on the other side. On the top side, I had to do a bit of sanding just to round off all the edges and also add some additional bits that I didn't add earlier on the part. After that, it was time to apply the carbon fiber again on the top side, and then the same process, just applying the resin. And for all the excess resin, I just removed it at the end using one of these Bondo scrapers, because just to make sure that I end up with the lightest part possible. After giving the resin about 7 hours to slightly cure, I just grabbed one of these knives and I cut all the excess carbon fiber off. Cutting it off this way made it a lot easier rather than waiting for the carbon fiber to fully cure and then using an angle grinder or something to cut it off, because that makes a lot of mess and dust flies everywhere. Here's a look at the part after it is complete. Now the carbon fiber has fully cured and it's gone really hard, and the whole part is actually extremely rigid now and still extremely lightweight. This whole thing over here actually just weighs 1.5 kilograms. It's extremely lightweight and extremely strong. That's the benefit of this construction using carbon fiber with a foam core. You end up with extremely light parts. Before I'm going to be mounting this part on, I got to do one more thing. That is to take off the splitter and start the repairs on the splitter, because the splitter has quite a bit of damage on it underneath that I need to fix. So now I jacked the car up, and I just wanted to show you guys the damage underneath the splitter, because it is quite a lot of damage actually. Well, one thing is over here. This was really stupid of me. When I loaded the car on the trailer for the first time, I went too far on the trailer and I hit this part of the splitter right on the trailer, and this whole thing broke off. I've just taped it together for now, but I'm going to be fixing this at the same time that I will fix the other damage, because the other extremely stupid thing that I did on Willow Springs was that that cable got loose, and I never bothered tightening that cable on time, so like the cable was literally hanging loose, because of which when I went back on track, this bolting point was taking the force of like that whole section of the splitter, and obviously wasn't strong enough for that, and this whole piece of carbon fiber literally broke off and the splitter started scraping the ground. So here's the place where it scraped the ground from, and you can see this whole part of the splitter is gone. I was really lucky that I didn't keep driving the car, otherwise this whole section of the splitter would have pretty much been gone. But after that, yeah, basically what I did was I just tightened up that cable, and I added this wooden thing underneath the splitter, and the whole of Laguna Seca, actually, when I drove the car over there, this wooden thing was the only thing holding the splitter up, so that's pretty surprising that this held up. But now it's time to take it off and do the proper repair on it. So for repairing the splitter, I started off by sanding away all the parts where the carbon fiber had been damaged or the foam core had been crushed. After that, I cut some new foam pieces in the same shapes where the foam had been damaged from, just so that I could replace the foam core. I had to sand it down in the same shape just to match the shape of the part. And once all that was done, I started off by applying some epoxy between the old foam and the new foam so it all bonds together. And then I just had to apply some carbon fiber over the whole thing, and that was pretty much it for the repair. Once the splitter was repaired, there was one more thing that I had to do on it. That was to make the proper radiator ducts. This was something that I had to do a lot earlier, but I never really got time to doing all this because when I was making the splitter, it was a bit of a rush because I had to get the car on the dyno pretty much the same day when I was making the splitter. And I had to do that really quickly because I was trying to get the car ready in time for the track. But now was the time to make the proper radiator ducts that I should have made last year pretty much. So for making these radiator ducts, it was fairly easy because I already knew the shape and everything that I needed for these. So I just cut the foam in the same shapes and I applied carbon fiber over it, pretty much the same way I made all these other parts. And then yeah, just cut all the excess carbon fiber off, and that was pretty much everything for the radiator ducts. Here's a look at the radiator ducts after they are complete, and I've also put this top section on just so that you guys can see how it all goes together. So yeah, basically this opening at the front is where all the air is going to go in from the front of the car. That little duct on the side is the thing that's going to divert the air to the engine oil cooler, which is going to go up like somewhere right on top of that. And then this whole other bigger section over here is right on top of this is where the main radiator is going to go. So all this air that is entering from the front of the car, it's going to have to pass through the main radiator before it exits from the top, from this section over here. And then this whole section at the back is also going to be covered by another panel that I have to make right now, which is going to be the engine cover. So yeah, it's all looking pretty good for now, but I still got to do a bit of trimming and stuff on these edges and like a bit of sanding too. But I'm going to do that later because I didn't want to cut too much carbon fiber and like sand it too much in my basement because dust flies everywhere. So I'm going to leave that for later, but for now, right now, I need to get to making the engine cover. For the engine cover, I also tried to change the design a little bit in that before all the engine was open, there was nothing covering the engine, but now I tried to cover at least the front part of the engine, but it wasn't easy because the engine sits quite a lot higher than the rest of the bodywork, so I had to add this awkward looking panel at the top that sticks out from the rest of the bodywork quite a lot. But I still left the back part of the engine cover open just because that's where the turbos and the exhaust is located, so I didn't want any issues with the exhaust getting too hot and the carbon fiber catching fire because of that. For making the engine cover, it was pretty much the same method I used for making the radiator cover at the front, so I just printed everything on paper and then cut the core cell in the same shape, and then use that as a mold to mold the carbon fiber. Now the reason everything did turn out so easy to make was because when I was designing the car I kept everything flat, simple shapes on purpose, because this way it's really easy to repair the panels. Like if in case I get into a crash later on, these flat shapes are really easy to repair. Or even if later on I lose an entire body panel in a crash, it's going to be extremely easy to make another one, because all I need to do is I need to print the same paper again and just make a new mold, and then yeah, pretty much just make a new panel for the car. It's going to take no time at all. It's not the best aerodynamically going with flat shapes and sharp edges, but just because it makes it so much easier to make, that was the point of going with this design. Here's a look at the engine cover, and I've put all the body panels of the car together over here for now because I wasn't bothered to mount everything on the car. I am going to be mounting everything on the car in the next video when the front fenders are complete, because what I'm thinking is that in the next video I'm going to be making the front fenders as well as some additional bits that need to go on the front so that the whole front end is complete, and then I'm going to mount it on the car all together. That way I'm going to save a bit of time, because I still need to do some work on the chassis to make attachment points where all these body panels are going to attach. But anyways, for now, showing you guys a closer look at this engine cover. This didn't turn out as well as I was hoping, because it was a really big piece and it was difficult to do all in one go, so I'm left with some air bubbles that I'll need to fix later. And also because it was a big piece, I had to do it in 2 pieces of carbon fiber, so there's this thing over here that I'll need to sand down later. But I'm not too bothered about cosmetics for now, because later on I'm going to be sanding down all these panels, and then I'm going to be wrapping the car silver and gray, so the final colors of the car are going to look pretty similar to my E55, because that was also silver. That's why I wanted to wrap the car in that color. But actually also talking about these tires, because I don't think I talked about these tires in any video. I posted a picture on Instagram about these tires, but yeah, these are Pirelli DH Slicks. They're the same type of tires that you see on GT3 race cars. The tires that the car is on currently are BF Goodrich G-Force R1S. Those are street legal slick tires, so they're also slick tires, but they're street legal. These ones are fully meant for racing. They're not even street legal tires. So yeah, I'm going to be putting these tires on, seeing how the car does on these tires. The next track test, by the way, is going to be in May. So I'm hoping that by May I can get done with all this body work, put these tires on, take the car back on track, see how it performs, and I'm hoping that these tires will be better than the current ones that are on the car right now. So also talking a bit about what's coming up for the next video. In the next video I'm going to be making the front fenders and also some other bits that I need to make to finish up the front end. And for the fenders, it's going to be a little more difficult than all these other body panels, because the shape of the fenders is a little more difficult. So what I'm going to be doing is that I'm going to be using this foam, and I'm going to be making the shape of the fenders like I'm cutting it out of this foam. And then once I have the shape, I'm going to be making a fiberglass mold for the fender, and then using carbon fiber in that fiberglass mold to make the final shape of the fenders. So it's a little more difficult than making all these other panels, but then I am also going to be ending up with a nicer result. So it's not going to be like this rough looking carbon fiber. It's going to be like a smooth, shiny looking carbon fiber, kind of like this piece over here. So it's going to look something like this. And yeah, hopefully if all goes according to plan for the next video, you guys should see the full front end of the car complete and mounted on the car. And it's hopefully going to be coming up in like 2 weeks from now or something. It's definitely not going to be as long as this video took. But yeah, that's going to be everything for this video. Thanks a lot for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.